coming to you live from DevOps Day here in Austin. I'm here with Dave Zwieback. Dave, how are you?
Good, how are you, man?
All right, so you gave a pretty cool Ignite talk just a little while ago about the Generalist. Can you just give us some ideas about what that was all about?
So basically, the DevOps movement, has been all around sort of processes and things like that, and I don't think it's been focused enough on the individual, and obviously you can't do anything without the individual. And so it occurred to me that the kind of people that we actually, that can actually make a DevOps shop happen, or the DevOps movement for that matter happen, are generalists. Basically people who have end-to-end understanding of what it takes to build a complex, large-scale web system. And so I started thinking about like how do you actually even label, hey, if you see a DevOps, if you see a generalist, like what does he or she look like? What are the attributes? And so, so that's basically in a nutshell. What's kind of interesting is, as I was doing research for this talk, I found that in ecology, there are actually sort of specialist species and generalist species. And the way that the ecologists think about it is, the generalist species are extremely excellent at adapting to changing environments. So like a raccoon is a type of generalist species. And so raccoons can thrive pretty much anywhere in like downtown New York City. You probably could find some in the gutters somewhere. Whereas, you've got your specialist species, which are perhaps more highly prized because they're kind of rare, but they're very, very fragile and very prone to extinction. And so if I sort of think about it from that perspective, it's actually a good thing to be a generalist, and so you basically won't go extinct. You will have a long and fruitful career as opposed to a fairly short and choppy, rocky one. So that's kind of the pitch, I guess.
So where do these people come from? Do they tend to be specialists who have then decided to have seen the light and decided to go generalist, or are they generalists who start out that way and just keep getting more general?
So what's interesting is you find specialists in large companies, and there's some large companies that are pretty good about moving their people around, and many of them are not, in the sense that they'll basically tend to stay in the same area for a long time and just aggregate a lot of knowledge. So, but even a little bit more broadly than that, like you find a lot of developers who don't know, like, what's the difference between a hard link and a soft link, or what's the difference between TCP and UDP. And to me, it's pretty inexcusable. Like in these days, I don't think you can write software without actually understanding the underlying operating system, the underlying network transport mechanism, and all those kinds of things, right? So a generalist approach is a very open-minded approach. How do things really work? And a specialist approach, obviously, is like the opposite of that. It's like I want to get as deep and nerdy as possible in a particular area. So the first thing that you will find about generalists is that they're actually older. I don't mean as old as me, but they've been out for maybe 5 or 10 years, or maybe they started coding when they were 8 years old, and just by virtue of their interest, by the time that they're 20, they're really well versed in a lot of different things. They will have a lot of different interests. A lot of the generalists I know are like interested in music and literature and ancient history. A lot of them don't actually have comp sci degrees, and they come to tech through just passion, and that's what they wanted to do. You will see generalists have different types of careers. Some have usability experience, some have product management experience, some have front-end development, back-end development, and you do actually want to see that kind of you could say risk-taking or people following their hearts and their interests. But the implicit here is actually the fact that it's largely dependent on the person, because you can sort of coast and be in the same place for 20 years and become really good at sort of a single thing. And like I said, big companies really encourage that. But if you take it upon yourself to do a lot of different things over the span of your career and to do them well, of course, there is a common misconception, let's put it this way, that a generalist is a jack of all trades, master of none. When, let's say, you're hiring, you want to fully take out this person, and if that person doesn't cut it, then you don't hire them. It's kind of simple as that. You want to give a coding test to the infrastructure person, to the sysadmin, and see how well they do. You want to ask about the hard link versus soft link of the software developer and see how well they do. And you want to ask them to design a large-scale system, and you want to ask them, how does this thing fail? So that's actually another key component of a generalist, is they've been through a lot of failure, and they're sort of battle scars, if you wish. You can, I know some folks that just by virtue of being promoted in organizations, they become architects without really having seen failure. And I would take a sysadmin who's been fighting fires for 5 years any day, because he or she can just articulate in 5 minutes much more about how these complex systems interact and fail in real world scenarios than a sort of white box architect.
Excellent. Dave, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.